I love door knocking. Yeah, it makes me nervous like anybody else, but it does force me to talk with people that I disagree with, which these days, many of us choose friends that just have similar political opinions. So door knocking gets me out of my bubble and gives me a more accurate reality of our country, of the world. It makes me struggle with questions like, how do you talk to a Trump supporter? How do you talk to somebody who believes that the borders are out of control or that the government is trying to take away their guns? How do you talk to somebody who's mad about how many taxes that they pay or doesn't care about children dying because of US supplied weapons? Now, many of these issues can be very triggering for us. However, struggling with these questions and more importantly, how to respond and convince people to your issue will make you a better organizer. And that will help you build concrete movements for justice. Welcome to Base Building for Power. We're an international training organization. Our goal is to get as much free and accessible training out there to people like you. So like and subscribe so that we can get more training out there. So in 2024, I knocked on over 10,000 doors myself, and I trained organizers in 6 congressional districts and 4 swing states. I worked and I volunteered for over 10 organizations. So I saw a lot of canvassing in the field. And to be honest with you, some door knocking programs were very effective and a lot were not. And so today, what I'm doing is I'm sharing with you some of the best practices that I've seen, learned from, and used to help you win on the doors. So there's 3 kinds of people that you're going to talk to when you knock on a door. 1 are people that completely agree with you. 2, people who are completely against you. And 3, people who are persuadable. Now today we're going to talk about persuasion, but I want to say a couple things about the first 2. On the base voters, the people that agree with you, it may feel so good that you have somebody that agrees with you that you're talking to. But the most important thing that you can do with people like that is fire them up and ask them to do more than what they are currently doing. Everybody should be asked to volunteer. Voting is not enough. Thinking about the issues, feeling the issues is not enough. We need more people to volunteer, which means that you need to ask. For the people who are against you, realize that your time is very valuable. And so if you make a decision, hey, this person's we're in a debate and they are completely against me, you gotta move on. And then there's persuasion. People who will disagree with you on some issues may agree with you on others, people that you are trying to persuade at the doors. And a lot of these people decide elections. So learning how to move them and persuade them are very, very important. So I have a few tips for you. Number 1, your introduction needs to break the ice, right? Nobody wants to have a conflict at their doorstep. You obviously want to introduce yourself. You want to use casual body language. I like to step down a couple steps. You want to connect with someone. If you can compliment them on something, that always helps. Their gardening, or I'll often look at how the sports team's doing. So I was in Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Steelers were 3-0. I looked it up and then I just started with, hey, we got off to a great start this year because they had a Pittsburgh Steelers sign. So something to just kind of break the ice. And then 1 sentence very early on about why you're there, who you're representing, why you're there knocking on doors. Number 2, you want to identify their top issues. Now, I found that open-ended questions are not necessarily the best way to get people talking, especially early on. So I like to give options. So I may say something like, well, some of your neighbors have said the cost of living or immigration or abortion access or democracy are some of the main things that they're talking about. What resonates with you, right? So giving people options often can help get folks talking. Number 3, you want to look for a point of agreement, all right? You may have more disagreements later in the conversation. Now, remember, this whole conversation really could be a 5-minute conversation. But what is a point of agreement other than the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing really great this year, right? So I found that the cost of living and everybody's struggling with the cost of living. Now, we may disagree on what to do about it, but that has been a very good way to connect, right? And so if they say, oh yeah, the cost of living's out of control, then you need to draw them out with questions, agitation, and connection. So questions could be, what costs are hitting you the hardest? How is it affecting your family? How is it affecting the time with your family? How many hours are you working a week, right? Or agitation. That's getting people fired up. It's not right that we're paying so much in healthcare. Do you think the billionaires are struggling with the cost of living? So agitation is getting people fired up about the issue that they care about. And then there's connection. So you can share a quick story about how the cost of living is affecting you. I, for example, just had my appendix removed. I actually had pretty decent health insurance, and still I have an $8,000 bill for a 15-minute surgery. So you may have something that will connect with what they're talking about. It's very important you don't get into a big debate. You're trying to get a place of agreement before you get into maybe some things that you disagree with. So then you got to make your best pitch about the issue that you are talking about. So let's say it's cost of living, and I'm going to give an example. I'm knocking on doors about how the tariffs are impacting working class people on the cost of living. So when you give your best pitch, you may do a lot of little education. Now, not a long speech, but like, hey, did you hear about how the tariffs are affecting the cost of basic goods at Walmart? Do you go to Walmart? Did you know that your congressperson supported these tariffs, right? So education in a way of asking questions, that's how I like to do it. And then you could include what they said or they were mad about the cost of living earlier. Now, I try not to be super preachy. I try to be earnest and concerned. And look, I believe that we need to do something about the cost of living. These tariffs are hurting our communities, and we have elected officials such as the one in this district that is supporting it. So I think we need to fight back against the tariffs and about elected officials that are supporting it. Do you agree with me? So that's an example of like one issue that you can now have a back and forth about, right? Time is valuable. You're trying to convince people who are convincible. So you don't want to spend a lot of time with people who are completely against you that are going to debate when you could be convincing other people. So then you want to make sure that whatever you're organizing for, that you have a clear ask. Now, I think a lot of people at their door, they may just say yes because they don't want to get into an argument at their door. I think having something to sign or a pledge is way better than a verbal yes. So for example, you could say, here's a petition to your congressperson to stop the tariffs. Would you sign the petition? Now that's good because then you can contact them later and then continue to build around that issue. And then remember, if they're a yes, you want to always ask them to volunteer. Caring and just voting is not enough. We need more people out there in the fight. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please like and subscribe so we can get more training out there. And also, we have a door knocking training coming up. So check out the description, and hope to see many of you at the doors.